Thanks everyone for being with us here at the Inner MBA Hub. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Inner MBA, it's a 9-month immersion program, and there are brochures in the back. And I'm going to take a moment because I'm about to introduce you to the conscious marketer, Richard Taubinger, and he's the founder of Conscious Marketer, and he's going to be sharing with you some of his breakthrough strategies. And it's really about how we can be authentic, how we can be ourselves, and how we can bring our true story and translate that into effective communications. And in my own history, that sounds true. I've been a very, very, very reluctant marketer, like the most reluctant, like an ostrich, a religious studies major ostrich. Doesn't fit with the kind of spiritual teachings that we publish, it sounds true, to come out strong with a... And Richard has been my coach. He has helped me lead with genuineness. So genuinely, I'm so excited about this new program. We have brochures in the back. When people sign up here at Wisdom 2.0, you receive a $500 discount on the program, and I'm available and other members of our staff are available to answer your questions. I'm in my feet, I'm in my heart, I feel good. I told you about something I care about. It's working. All right. And now you can learn from Richard yourself about conscious marketing. Come, Richard.
Thanks, Tammy. And thanks for creating this space. I think it's the 5th year that I've come to Wisdom, and I've sponsored 4 years with my company. And every time I come, I search the pamphlets to see like where are the business speakers, because I want to figure out how to find the intersection between business and consciousness, because that's kind of been what I'm passionate about in my life. This is called the Conscious Marketing Code. It's part of something bigger that we work with clients for on how to market themselves successfully. And it's kind of evolved over many years. And what I've thought through is how I can be of most service to you here today. And I thought that there's probably kind of 2 groups of people, and if you can raise your hands on which group you are. The first group is maybe somebody who's an author or you have something to publish. How many like that here? Okay, enough. And then there's probably another group of you who might be more like me, who run an agency or you work within a corporation and you're trying to help other people to market their things. Is that right? Okay, more of those people. That's interesting. So this presentation, I'm basically going to be going through 3 different big ideas. And what I've done is I've kind of cherry-picked out of the Conscious Marketing Code 3 things that I see a lot of creators get a little bit off. And if you can understand these things, you can figure out how to have success. Let me tell you a little backstory. When I got out of college, I wanted to be a trader. I wanted to be a financial trader. And this is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and I worked on the floor of this exchange. There's a little arrow there. That's not really me. I just put the arrow there. And I stood in this pit for 6 or 7 hours a day trading futures, and I did this day after day. And this is kind of the early days when nothing was screen-based. And as things started to move toward the screen, I actually moved to Asia. And in Asia, I lived there almost 10 years. Most people don't have that kind of experience. I lived in Hong Kong. I lived in Singapore. I lived in Tokyo. And I had this fascination with things Eastern. I used to trade during the day, and I used to come home and meditate at night. And that's not the normal thing a trader does, you know. So I kind of had 2 lives. I was living 2 lives. I had this life where I was a financial trader, and then I had this other life. And after around 10 years, I had to make a shift. I was making like a lot of internal shifts, and I knew I wanted to be of service to the world. And I kind of went inward, and I went on soul search, and I came back to the United States, and I took a job at this place, which is Stanford University. It's not too far from here. And I ended up in their administration, their business school. And I had 2 jobs. One was to arrange speakers for the dean. And the other job was to place MBA students in international positions Now, there's two interesting things about that. One was they were all trying to get the job that I had just left, and they were seeing that as their penultimate. And the other interesting thing was I was seeing thousands and thousands of jobs. I mean, you can imagine at a place like Stanford or Harvard or any top university, it's the creme de la creme of like jobs in the market. And what was disheartening for me was I was looking at all these positions and none of them were resonating with me. And I went into meditation one day and I had this insight, and the insight was like, what you care about is inner transformation. You care about helping people go inside, because if you can make that inner transformation, then everything else transforms. And that's why I'm so excited about the Inner MBA, because that's actually the whole purpose of the program is to work on those inner skills. So I spent about a year there. Once I had that insight, I knew I needed to move on. And what I did is I basically started a marketing agency, and I took on one client at the time. And it was kind of touch and go. You know, I went from making a lot of money in finance. The last position I had, I was co-managing a $150 million hedge fund, to having one kind of spiritual author that I was trying to market. Now, I didn't have family at the time, so that wasn't as stressful. But basically, the request was, how do I shift from traveling all year round, teaching at events? And back in the day, or mid-2000s, you know, you had to go to Esalen, you had to show up at retreats and teach at yoga centers, and it was really tiring. And as teachers get older, they don't want to do that. So that was one request. The other was this online world was opening up, and it was like, how do I market my stuff online? And then the last piece was, how do I make more money? I have all this material that I want to help people. How do I get that online? And that's kind of the problem that we started to solve for our clients. And around 2007, we did our first what I call online launch, and it was for a product for Bagua. Bagua. Does anybody know what Bagua is here? Right. Nobody knows what Bagua is. It's like an internal martial art from China. It's like a little tiny thing. And if you're kind of into Tai Chi, you might know what Bagua is. And this person had a list of around 15,000 people, and we put it through what they call a classic video launch. And within 2 weeks, we had made like $500,000. And I was like, oh my God, like this is cool. I was like, let's do more of this. So one of the big lessons, and if you get nothing from this presentation, and probably many of you know this, but I'll just restate it because it's good to know the basics. And basically, the game back then and the game still now is to create a direct distribution channel, and you do that by building an email list. And there's other types of lists now, like retargeting lists and Facebook lists. And the game hasn't really changed that much in terms of that. This is a stadium. This is the San Francisco Stadium. It's 70,000 people. And so I have many clients with 70,000 people. I have some clients with more like 2-3 million. But if you have an email list of 70,000 people, with a click of a button, you're reaching a whole football stadium. If you put it in that kind of perspective, it kind of makes you step back and go, well, that's pretty powerful, you know. Fast forward 15 years to present day. There's a lot happened in between there, yeah. We've done over 200 launches, millions of lives impacted. We've worked with many of the top spiritual authors, speakers in the world. And we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about this. And so what I'm going to share with you today is just 3 ideas that are basically the underlying foundation for many of these top launches. And all of them have that. Just quickly, the 2 driving questions for me have been, how do I create a breakout strategy? And so a breakout strategy is somebody comes to me with a list of 10,000 people. How do I make that 100,000? Somebody is doing $100,000 a year. How do I make that $500,000? Somebody wants to become a New York Times bestseller. These are breakout strategies. Like, how do we engineer that so that it's not luck, right? And then the other thing is, how do we do this consciously? How do we send an email so that people don't feel like bombarded? How do we create a video that just connects authentically with the consumer? So it's a combination of breakout strategy and then aligning with so that the marketing is in alignment with what you're marketing. You can't market meditation and then bring people into fear to sell the meditation. Like, it's kind of counter, it's like not what you want to do, but people are actually trying to do that in the marketplace. So the first big idea I want to give you is really the secret behind most big breakout successes, and it's not so obvious. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this one, because if you can get this, a lot of it is when you first start to create your idea, you really need to think about this, because if you get this wrong at the beginning, then nothing really saves you in the end. But if you get this right, it's like you have the wind at your back. And so I just call it aligning with powerful market forces. And there's this idea that if you're, marketing creates the demand is basically the myth. And it's like you go into the market and I have this product now, I'm gonna find the consumer. And what you find for the biggest launches in the market, it doesn't really work that way. It's actually the opposite. The biggest ideas, they tap into a demand that already exists. And that's a little counterintuitive. So rather than create this product and marketing as your savior in the end, you should be thinking, where is there already demand? How can I find that demand in the market? And to ground this, I'm going to give you just a few examples here. This is out my back door in Maine. I just moved to Maine to slow down a little bit. And this is a pond. It doesn't look like this now. It's full of ice, and it's very cold outside. But this is the pond in May. And if I wanted to surf, this would be a very bad place to go, okay? I've also lived in Hawaii. If I wanted to surf, this would be a better place to go. This is Jaws. Of course, if you were just starting out, this wouldn't be the place either. You would die, right? You go to a smaller wave. But the idea is that demand, you can look at demand as waves that come in, and it comes in through the collective consciousness. Demand actually isn't much different than trading. What moves a financial market is the same thing that moves demand for your products and services. And so what you want to be doing is looking for existing demand waves that are rippling and moving through the market, and you want to find those, and then you want to ask yourself, how can I see a wave that's coming in and then meet it with something that the market already needs? And if you do that, then it's easy. You just ride the wave in. You don't have to market because everybody wants what's already there, and you just ride the wave in. Does that make sense? A little bit? Yeah, okay. Let me give you an example. In the United States, truck sales have been going like this, and overall auto sales have been going down. At the same time, electric car sales have been going up, and there's just been a great demand for electric cars and truck sales. And to this day, even now, there is no electric truck. There's a huge pent-up demand for electric trucks, and nobody has created one. And so late last year, Elon Musk saw this, and probably he's been working on this for a while, and he did a conference. Does anybody watch that or know about that? It was a couple hours, and in 2 hours, he took 250,000 pre-orders within 24 hours. You had to put down $100. So that's equal to about $12 billion of pre-sales for this truck. He saw there's this existing demand wave. He didn't spend $500 million like Mike Bloomberg did just last month on social ads. He saw an existing wave, and he positioned his company in a position to go and to take advantage of that. Contrast that to Toyota. They have the Prius. They have all the technology. They have one of the best-selling trucks, the Tacoma, out there. Why didn't they put those things together? Like, you kind of ask yourself, why didn't that happen? This is a summit we did last year. This was a collective trauma summit with Thomas Hubel. And I met him here last year at Wisdom, and he asked me to help him with a summit. And I reluctantly do summits because they're so much work. But we sat down, and he explained to me, like, everybody's focusing on individual trauma, and it all exists within this field of collective trauma. And you can't process individual trauma without understanding collective trauma. And when he said this, I got it right away. And I was like, oh, wow, that's like a huge wave. And so this summit collected over 50,000 opt-ins within a very short amount of time, 3 weeks, changed his business. I think he's publishing through you, Tammy, in the fall, collective trauma book. And so this has created a massive wave for good in the world around this topic. Inner MBA. 50 years ago, Robert Greenleaf published a book called A Servant as Leader. It was one of the first kind of conscious things that happened. And throughout the years, different waves have rippled through this consciousness. And I think the wave that has been the largest wave that's transformed not just business, but a lot of different areas. In fact, it's kind of come to business later in the game is mindfulness, because it's made meditation safe for corporations. And that wave is kind of passed. Not passed, but it's still strong, but there's another wave. And I think Inner MBA is that next wave. It's like, okay, what's beyond mindfulness? How do we actually bring different practices into the corporation? How do we focus on compassion and empathy? Who are the leaders in that field? And so Tammy is quite a visionary, and she's created this inner MBA program, which is catching this next wave that's coming in. And she's not trying to create demand for and convince you that it's right. She's just trying to show you what's needed in the corporate world and tap into existing demand. And it's interesting to sit with some of the corporations and talk about this program. And they say, we really need this because we need a program on inner. Because you can go through, my MBA is from University of Chicago. I didn't get any inner skills. I was like doing discounted cash flow analysis and all this venture capital. Like none of this stuff was taught there. And so there's a demand for this with where the world of business is going with consciousness. So 3 takeaways. One is there's these demand waves that come in. And so what creates waves is actually wind and storms. And so you can see these waves and you can predict these waves before they come. And the wind and the storm in the customer's mind are problems. They're things that they need solved. And so you can look in your own market and figure out what problems your thing can solve. The second is if you miss the first wave, don't worry. There's like other waves. Like think through what the next wave is and the next wave. You don't have to be first. In fact, sometimes being first isn't necessarily a good thing. And then if you see a wave coming in, it's a good sized one. You don't have to take that big one in Hawaii. Take a smaller wave and just find your place on it. Don't go right on top of where somebody else is going. Figure out how you can offer something different and unique in the market so that you can take advantage of this trend that's moving through the market. And that's how it kind of works in the market. Okay, so that's the first big idea. And it's really the fundamental principle for all of the things that do like $1 million launches and things like that. And you can use it in your business when you're thinking of designing your program and putting it in the market. Make sure you're connecting to something that's already in the market, that's already needed in the market. If you hear yourself saying, and I talked to somebody last week that told me this, oh, that's already been done. Somebody's already doing that. You should say to yourself, that's a good thing. And it's completely opposite. You should say, great, there's demand already out there. And I just have to find a way to do a little bit better. And that's a little counterintuitive, okay? Okay, second one. That first one is more the larger market forces. This one is about your inner game. And I believe that if you're a brand, a business, you need to stand in front of your brand, basically, and become the spokesperson for the brand. And there's this myth that you need to hire a great marketer and that they're going to write all the emails and do everything for you. And I can tell you, and it's a little bit counterintuitive, I'm a marketer, right? So I'm saying don't hire me, basically. Not really, but I'm saying, what I'm saying is you don't need a marketer. What you really want to do is make sure that you're standing in front of the brand. You can have support around you, but you need to understand your role in the marketing of the product. And, I've worked with a lot of spiritual authors, and I'm not a marketer. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I'm like, okay, great. But you have to figure out a way to stand in front of your brand that's authentic so that you can tell people what the message is. So, for example, Eckhart, one of Eckhart's main things is the pain body, right? Well, what's the pain body? The pain body is the thing that people need solved. So when he talks about the pain body, that's one of the reasons he's so successful, because he's connecting with a genuine need in the market. And he's doing it in a way that everything that he does, or what you want to do in your marketing, is every piece of marketing that you put out, you have to realize it changes consciousness a little bit. Okay, so everything you put out, you should be asking yourself, does this create value for the people that are watching this? I have to twist this analogy just a little bit, but basically, if you can think of it this way, if you have a partner, an intimate partner, you can't outsource that relationship to somebody else. I could say it in a different way, I won't on the stage. But you can't outsource that, okay? Like your marketing is your connection with the people that are yours. And it's the most intimate thing that you have. And so if you're downgrading that to your marketing department or somebody else, it doesn't mean you can't find a great writer or a copywriter or a great firm like mine to work with, but you have to be involved. I mean, I think think of people like Steve Jobs. Think about how much he thought about the marketing, how he wanted to show up in the market. He put a lot of juice into that. but he still hired the best ad agency in the world. Yeah, right? This is Tokyo. Anybody know what this is? This is the subway in Tokyo, and they push you in. And I did this for like a year in Tokyo. And I was tall, so I stood about that high above everybody, and I know what hairspray smells like, you know? This is the internet right now. This is social media. This is your inbox. It's crowded. Yeah, this is the subway version of what the internet looks like. And your customers have this conversation in their mind. I already know this. This person just wants my money. I tried this with this other person over here, and it didn't work. And that's just what they come in with, right? So even if you have the best stuff in the world, it wasn't like this even 5 years ago. But that's where our market is now. So that's what you're marketing into now. So you have to find a way to break through that. And let's look at how to do that. So forget marketing and do these 3 things. So I'm going to give you 3 ideas to break through the market and get through that noise. The first is to talk about your vision and values often with energy so people can feel you. Everything you put out creates a feeling. Or if it doesn't create a feeling, then there's a problem. So, Tammy's tagline for Sounds True is waking up the world. That's big, yeah? You could talk about that. That's like, oh, wow, that's exciting. I want to be part of that, right? I think Bill Gates was a computer in every household. So they started to talk about their vision. The other thing is values. Talk about your values. Most people don't do this. Like one of our values is always be connecting for my company. And so what that means is, even though I live in Maine, I get on a plane and I fly because I know I need to have lunch with people. I'm here having a booth talking to some of my customers. I'm here talking to you. I'm on calls every week with people checking in. So there's this sense of connection that has to occur. So I could go on social and start to talk about the values that I care about. Values allow people to really know who you are at a much deeper level. And if you don't have your values down or listed, 5 or 7, that's okay. Make a list. I learned this when I did a launch for servant leadership. I learned a lot of these top management consultants, the values of a corporation were so powerful. And if you move that into the marketing, you differentiate yourself. You don't do that really to sell, but you get it so that people know who you are. Second, tell people your backstory, epiphanies, take them behind the scenes. So I started this with a backstory of where I came from, some of the transition. You know a little bit about me now. If you see me somewhere, you know where I've come from. And you can either like me or not like me. That's okay, but at least you know. If you know somebody's backstory, you'll know whether you want to buy from them or not. It's important. Kylie's in the back here. She's really good with stories. She works with me directly. And story is so important. All of these things can be told through stories. Take them behind the scenes. If you're creating something, share that. Open up a little bit. This is how people like you. This lets them know that you're human and that you're not posting all this fake stuff online. And it creates another type of connection that's important before the sale. And then lastly, there could be many more here, but this one's probably the most important. If what you do doesn't create value in the market or you're not the best at whatever the niche is, work on that first. But the best type of marketing that you can do is to have somebody market for you. And the best way to do that is just to share their stories. And so the more stories of success that you can have for your coaching or for the product or service you offer, then you just post that online. Because if I get up here and say, look how great I am, I've done these millions of dollars of launches and whatever, you're going to be like, that guy's a jerk, whatever, right? But if somebody else says that or somebody that you respect does that, it'll get through to you. The other thing is you can start to post these stories online. And if you've ever started to watch somebody who does this really well, and not many people do it well. The stuff that I'm teaching you is very, very small percentage of people do this. So you're going to separate yourself. But the first story, you're like, yeah, he paid that guy or that girl. And the second story, you're like, yeah, whatever. But by about the 5th or 6th testimonial or transformational story, your ego just goes, and you're like, God, I got to work with this person. How do I work with this person? That's literally what happens. And then you just keep watching. Sometimes you'll watch people over months, and then you just be like, I have to work with this person. I have to go and do something with them. And that's what happens. The resistance just dissolves, and it just goes away. And it goes away for a good reason, because you're creating results. So you've got to focus on the delivery. You got to focus on the results. Nothing's going to say, no marketing is going to save you if you don't have that. But if you have that, make sure that you're publishing it online. So the thing is, I don't want to market. I don't want to get on video. So if you're still having resistance, this is a big thing in many communities. So I want to give you 3 more ideas just so that we can get you out the gate. The first is, how can I be of service? If you just show up to the market and ask, how can I be of service? How can I be of higher service? Whatever your version of that is, it takes it about like, oh, what are people going to think about me, to how can I be of service to you? And if you flip it around, it changes everything. The second is, I worked with a group of naturopaths in a small group because, another story, I'll leave that for another time, but if you can start to see that you have medicine, if you start to see as your doctor, you have medicine that heals and helps something in particular, whatever that is, helping people get more clients or whatever, and you know that you can deliver on that. If you went to your doctor and your doctor had medicine that could cure what you had, would they withhold it? So if you start to think about what you having as actual medicine that can help people, it's a small mental tweak, and you can realize that you just have to have the courage to stand up in front of that camera or to do that launch video or whatever it is, or send that email. Okay, and it's a minor shift, but it's one that has helped me a little bit. It's like you're responsible. It's like your moral obligation, because you have this gift you can give and you're holding it back if you're not marketing yourself. And then last, I see this sometimes, and I just share it, but if you don't want to stand up for whatever, you don't want to be a spokesperson for something that you're doing right now, maybe you're doing the wrong thing, So you just have to ask yourself that question, and sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you have a true purpose that you're not aligned with. It was funny, I was walking through the lobby this morning, and I have a iPod thing, and I have a soul list, and it's like all the songs that include the word soul in it, just because I'm weird like that, yeah. And the song that was playing on the radio was When Soul Meets Body, and I was like, oh, this is great, So if your soul is not becoming embodied and you're not living your passion, then do that. And if you have that and you're doing something that you're passionate about, you'll just keep doing it. Tammy's been at Sounds True 35 years. It's like, I went on the site last night, 700 authors, one of the greatest spiritual libraries on the planet. 35 years. I Googled Oprah last week. Guess how many interviews Oprah's done? I mean, Oprah's just amazing. 4,576. Guess how many interviews? Over 25,000 interviews. Like, that's mastery. That's showing up every day to be of service, So, not easy, but she did it. Okay, last one. We're kind of in the home stretch here. So, 5 rituals for conscious creators. And what I thought would be interesting was I'm going to look at everybody that I've worked with and think, what are the 5 things that they do? Can I simplify it down to just 5 steps? If you just do these 5 things, you'll be able to have this breakout success in the market. And here's what I came up with. Oh, we have our myth first. So there's this myth that like somebody just goes in the market and they're just a natural on camera and they have this breakout success, right? And that's not the truth. The truth is that person normally has been publishing consistently over time. Occasionally, some people could have a breakout and then they break down really fast. But if you see consistent success over time, I can tell you that that's not the case. You can ask yourself, how much of my time am I consuming information on the internet versus how much time am I producing? How much time am I spending watching stuff versus how much time am I writing stuff or recording stuff? I know when I looked at that for me, I was like, oh, that's not so good, Now I run an agency, so I'm helping other people to do that. But for me to get my own work out there, I have to be on stage. I have to be doing more of the publishing side of it. It's the truth. Okay, ritual number 1. Everybody that I work with has one primary platform, and they want to have one primary medium. And the mistake is there's so many different platforms in the world that you can I need to be here and here and here. But normally, you're going to have one medium that you're really good at. You're going to be either an audio person, like podcasting, or you're going to be a video person. Some people love to be on video. That's not me. Or you're going to be a writer. You can do all 3, and there are ways that you can take one piece of content and spider it out. That's another talk. But figure out what the one thing is, and then get consistent on that one thing, and just focus on one thing at a time. So choose your platform. You're always going to need to have an email part of it, but choose your social platform, and then just start to publish consistently. You need to block your time. Like any great writer, any great person that does like videos every week, they're blocking time. I know this is simple stuff, but if you look at your calendar, what I did not to write my book is I would hijack all my production time. Yeah, and I did the same thing with my body too, with working out. And so for my body, what I did is I had to hire a trainer. And so I have to show up on the trainer. For writing, you can't, I can't schedule client meetings right on top of my writing time. So you have to block the time, and it takes time to create content. It takes time to share your message in the world if you want to do this. Ritual number 3, and I mentioned this earlier, conscious creators are always working on new ways to grow and nurture their email list. I sat next to one of the top internet marketers in the world one time. It was a big conference many years ago, and I turned to him and I said, "What's the one thing you'd recommend for success in the marketplace?" Here's a guy who'd made many millions of dollars. He actually wrote the first infomercial for Furbies, if you can believe that. Yeah, it's like a long time ago. Yeah, it was like how to care for, it wasn't even the Furby, it was how to care for the Furby. Isn't that funny? Anyway, and he turns to me and he says, spend 1 day a week, not 1 hour, 1 day a week on your opt-ins. 1 full day every week on how to get your opt-ins. So you can, this is the thing, because if you create a product, how much extra effort does it take to send to 50,000 versus 100,000? Do you have to do exercises for your finger to press the button? No, you just push it, yeah. Ritual 4, conscious creators create and use digital marketing plan for consistent publication. So you got to create your content, but you got to put it in a plan. I'm not a project manager. So what you need to do is find somebody on your team, or you could be this person, and puts it in a consistent yearly plan. I teach a lot of people how to do this. There's 4 cycles that you go throughout the year, but you got to get a plan together, and then you just need to stay consistent. Consistent production is the groundwork for breakout success. And just quickly, you just want to rotate between launch times, nurture times, and affiliate times. And you just plan your calendar, and you just rotate between those 3 things. And then lastly, create solution-based offers that move customers to deeper levels of intimacy. And we could probably talk an hour just on this slide. But basically, when you're creating a product, think about the solution, the problem, the pain that you're solving. If you have trouble with pain, I learned this with naturopaths, think about empathy. Empathize for what your customer is feeling and create a product to get them out of that pain. I mean, many great spiritual traditions have a practice of taking in the pain of others and translating it back out as love and peace. You can do that with marketing too. You can do that with your customers' pain and then create a product out of that. And then move your customers deeper levels. Intimacy means going from a base product, maybe they do it themselves online, to done with you. It's more, I'm going to be on live calls with you and help you out, to done with you, or more certification things where you're showing up, learning from the person. So this is a screenshot of the Inner MBA. So they put together a program, and it has 4 tracks. And each track is meant to be targeted to a certain type of thing that the customer wants. One track's a CEO track. It's like the interaction with the CEO. These top people have built these billion-dollar companies. Another track's a trainer track. It's like practical skills. Another track's a research track. It's like, what are the numbers that make this inner stuff actually viable? And then the last track is this wisdom track. What are the inner skills? What's the meditation skills? What do I need to be doing on a daily basis to transform? So that offer is a complete package. This is kind of the end of the intimacy, because this is a very intimate program, but there could be, the front end of that could be could be a program on mindfulness or something like that. And so deeper things. Okay, so that's it. So the world needs you. Show up, have some fun, and publish, get out there, be the spokesperson for your brand. Thank you.
Great presentation. And I've never quite seen so many people with their cell phones taking pictures of the slides. I loved seeing that. Okay, questions for Richard? We have just a few minutes, yeah.
I come from sort of the underground, bunch of people in my community, peers are all coaches or healers, artists.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what your feedback is about people like us who, we don't have necessarily whole teams of people, right? We're solopreneurs. And I feel like there's all this pressure for us to become like our own marketing experts. But we're not necessarily wired to be marketing experts. So I'm just curious if you have feedback for people who are in that position. How can they tap into the intelligence of a digital marketing plan and all of that without having to compromise what they're doing with their time to stop doing the healing and whatnot? That's what they're really here to do, and do the marketing. Where do you see that? Because it feels like, people who are really good at marketing, healers that are really good at marketing, are getting more of the business because they're good at marketing than necessarily even skilled at healing. So I'm wondering if you have any input about people who are in that position. How can we grow? How can we scale without having to compromise what we're focusing our energy on, or have to suddenly become marketing experts when we're really good at something else?
It's a good question. I think the first thing I'd suggest is that you make a shift. See, there's a separation between the marketing and your work, and so you need to annihilate that. And so when you go online, you need to see that as part of your work. Does that make sense? So do you see the division that you've created in your mind, that there's a marketing stuff over here and my work here, and this is a distraction to what I really need to be doing? But what you can shift is, how can I create content that helps people and is of value on the front end, and that's part of my work. There's no holy grail, hire this person, or I know most of the people in that field, and in some ways I feel for you, because I feel like the internet marketing establishment preys on coaches. I don't know why that is, but it's sinister. I'm can you just leave the coaches alone? So just, you have to realize that it's not marketing. You're a spokesperson, and you're doing coaching online when you do a video. There's no difference. Do you get it? Yeah. And then just do that. I'm not saying, I gave you some ideas on what types of videos to publish, but that would be the first thing.
Thanks so much for all of that overview. I have spent my time working at a large tech company that's been very successful in marketing, and you hit the nail on every single thing that I know we did well.
Oh, great.
The question that I had is kind of for this audience: what would you recommend for helping drive the building of that opt-in? What are the top strategies that you've seen folks use kind of in this realm for building email contacts?
I used to do a lot of work with lead pages. Does anybody know lead pages? I don't use them as much anymore, but it's a system to opt in, and they had a view to tens of millions of opt-ins. And the guy who started it was a guy named Clay. I think they sold it to a venture capital company. It's kind of, I don't use them anymore. Let's leave it at that. But what they found was the PDF was the fastest, best opt-in ever, still. Yeah, it's just basically
free something that's a PDF that I get to download information. Yeah.
And the answer is, there's a lot of different techniques depending on the level of expertise. So a summit can give you 50,000 emails in 3 weeks, but it takes a lot to pull off. There's micro summits, there's emails, there's video sequences, and so there's a whole range. And it's really if I was diagnosing the business, I would go in and go, okay, with where you're at, this is the medicine I would be, or these are the opt-ins I'd be recommending. But the PDF always works. Simple things like webinars still work. A little less so. The market's pretty crowded with webinars. But just find something that your customer really wants, and then give it away in exchange for the email. And then don't pummel them with 7 sales emails. That's not going to work. Yeah.
Right. No, actually, thank you for that. And I'll just say, I'm aware that United Healthcare used that exact approach to drive their Medicare sales by giving people a free handbook to learn about Medicare that's complicated.
Right.
So to your point, give away free stuff and get emails.
It still works, and it's easy. Anybody can create a 5-page PDF, right?
Hi, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Shinchak, and I'm just your neighborhood Buddhist nun on the run.
Oh, great.
You mentioned story, yeah, and how to bring that out in your marketing. I've been noticing this for years, people bringing their stories out, but there's a fine, soft line to where your story pushes somebody away because of the visceral effect. So do you have something to say about how far do you go with your own personal story to create a connection and also a visceral response, but not too much?
I wish I could bring Kylie up here to talk about that because she's our story expert. But it sounds like you're dealing with people that might have some kinds of trauma or are going through things, or
Not necessarily, but I've been watching the wave of storytelling
Right.
and then how it's brought out in marketing.
I see.
And then people's the effect on people when they actually are hearing it or seeing it,
Right.
feeling it.
Well, I think story can be over-programmed. And so I think the main thing I would just say is, like, when Tammy got up, she said, how to do it authentically. So just show up authentically with what's real, with you think that can be of service to somebody. If you're doing it as a technique to convince somebody to do something, then it's going to start to feel icky, and your people are going to want to go take a bath afterwards, right? So just focus on the feeling and being of service, and then modulate, to the depth of the story for the audience. I think it's an art form. It's not a science, Yeah.
I'm entering into the fintech space with my business, and so 14 years of being in the industry, seeing a lot of exploitation, and I think just the general understanding of that industry, it's not the most positive in terms of the eyes of the consumer. And so when you think about marketing and going up against an industry that doesn't have the best reputation, there's that desire to kind of want to
It's a golden opportunity for you.
Yeah, it's kind
Because
of
you can just call them out for where they're at, or you don't have to do that. You can just show up, and people are like, "Oh my God, we've been waiting." You see the wave of demand behind something that hasn't that the market is already not liking it, and so if you show up and be real, then that's an opportunity.
Yeah, because it's kind of like what Marianne Williamson said. Want to be inconvenient. I want to pull back the curtain.
Right.
But on the same side, it's like, well, that seems like I'm just pointing out the negatives, and I'm not being
Right.
positive with my marketing and my messaging. So, like, just how do you balance that? I guess is my question. And do you see any potential traps that lie there?
Well, there's definitely a negative polarity, and there's two ways to do it. And some political candidates go to the negative polarity, many that we know probably. So you just have to decide whether that's what you want to do or not. We don't do that. That's not how we operate. We tend to focus on connecting with what people want and leading authentically with how we're different. But you don't have to name call or demonize the other person. You just give them an alternative. So I think, it's an art form, and you just have to work through the messaging really carefully. Yeah.
We have one last question here. I realize there are more questions in
Great.
the room, but Richard will be around for a while, and you can speak to him directly.
Hi, Richard.
Hey, Ellen.
Hey, thanks for pulling together a lot of complex stuff and making it really easy and understandable.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. You said you kind of divide the year between launch time, affiliate time, and first, what was the third one?
There's nurture.
Nurture. Okay.
So
So
yeah,
could-
you could put it into 5 buckets actually. It's a little longer teaching, but there's an onboarding sequence. So when somebody first joins their email list, like how are you going to treat them in the first 30 days? And then and you can make an offer there. That doesn't mean that you don't make an offer. And then there's the offers. There's offer stages. So if you're in a launch, so you do launches. So like there's like an area, and then there's another area that's like, okay, they're out of the launch. How do I repair the list? Okay, I've made some ask. I've sent some emails. I've asked them to buy. How do I repair the list? And how do I give them more value? How do I refill the bucket, of my list? And then there's affiliates. So you work with a lot of affiliates, so you have to find time for your affiliates. And so you may be doing some trades. And then you don't have to put this on the marketing calendar, but the fifth is the delivery of the actual programs. So sometimes you may not want to be doing anything, but just focusing on delivery, or delivery or content creation. So you can divide the calendar that way.
And it sounds like you think about really working with the affiliates in a concentrated way outside of launch time as well as during a launch.
I don't see many people do it, but if you could be contacting your affiliates and working 6 months in advance and knowing what they're doing and then making strategic trades, because if somebody has a list of 100,000, you have 100,000, that's a great trade, and especially if it's a non-competing product and you have those contacts. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Richard. You gave so much value to all
Okay,
of us.
thank you.
The conscious marketer, Richard Taubinger.
Thanks, Tammy.